Today I wish to celebrate Jacques Lusseyran, who is a name. I'm trying to think how it was that he originally came to me. Clearly, somebody had recommended an incredible book of his, which is called And Then There Was Light. I hope I've got that correct. Then There Was Light, or And Then There Was Light. And it's the story of a man who. It's his autobiography, and it recounts his experience of both initiating and then running the French resistance during the time of the Second World War. It is a deeply inspiring book. It's the story of a group of young friends who decide they have to do something in the face of a massive threat, and they have to do it all under the cloak of darkness. It has to be completely in secret for obvious reasons. And yet they managed to build an organisation that numbered the tens of thousands at its peak, was spread throughout the country but also had its connections internationally, did all of this without the use of telephones, which or any kind of mobile communications, which just beggars belief that you can have an organisation of so many people working cohesively without any of the technology that we take for granted today. But the story of Jacques Lusseyran wasn't just inspiring because of what this organisation managed to do. It's particularly inspiring. It's funny because yesterday I was talking about Aldous Huxley and his experience of being blind. Jacques Lusseyran was blind from a very early age. If I remember correctly, something happened in his early youth which damaged his eyesight, so he did see at some point but then lost his vision almost completely. And so he spent many of his early years wrestling with that and coming to terms with it and educating himself despite his difficulties. Obviously he learnt Braille, and he then actually became quite an educated young man, and if I remember correctly was a very argumentative debater at school and didn't take anything for granted. Now, what then became so intriguing in this story was the role that he played within the French resistance. Now, if I'm correct, because it's a while ago since I read this book, he actually initiated it with some group of friends out of a we must do something kind of attitude. And very quickly it was discovered that Jacques had a particularly acute sense of people that meant that his judgment of them enabled them to know whether or not there was someone that could be trusted. Now, being blind, losing a sense, it's a bit like deafness. When you lose a sense, you often have a massive sensitivity that then increases in the other senses as a compensation. And so deaf people are acutely observant. You know, they see every detail of someone's character. It's hard to trick a deaf person when it comes to personal interactions. They are watching. And blind people, they are listening. They are feeling. It's like they are these, or at least can be these raw nerve endings that are just pulling in information, perhaps through senses that we don't even fully understand yet. Because Jacques Lusseyran seemed to have a sixth sense for people. He became the interviewer and kind of the portal, the gateway into the resistance for a considerable amount of time, and for many hundreds and I think thousands of people. If someone wanted to join the resistance, a clandestine meeting was arranged for that person with Jacques Lusseyran, And they were able, and he was able, with a short discussion and spending some time with them, to assess whether or not this person could be trusted. Now, if I again remember correctly, this continued successfully for 2, 3, 4 years at least during the length of the war, until eventually there was one situation where he had had a nagging doubt about someone and wasn't going to invite them to participate in the resistance. And yet he went against his own intuition, partly because of the people that had recommended him and put him forward and his connections, and he went against his better judgment and allowed this person to join the resistance, and they ended up being the person who then exploded the movement by betraying their actions to the authorities. I believe it was to the Germans at that time. So it's an incredible story of personal victory over circumstances, of incredible discipline, the way in which they organised themselves without relying on any technology. They managed to distribute an underground newspaper across France and across Europe for years without detection. It's just incredible. What a feat that would be without any phones to coordinate themselves with. Or it's amazing. They helped to shelter military that would have been captured otherwise, English servicemen and other nationalities too. They protected them from German capture. They protected Jews. They protected civilians. Helped all sorts of people to flee. I mean, it's just incredible what they managed to do from an organisation that seemingly organised itself without a headquarters, without a, it's amazing. And Jacques Lusseyran was not only the man behind this, he was a man who overcame incredible personal challenges in order to do so. So I highly recommend the book And There Was Light, and investigating a little bit the life of Jacques Lusseyran. I hope sharing his life with you here helps to honour his name and his life and the contribution that he made to the 20th century. Here's a moment for Jacques Lusseyran. Thank you. In the peace of the forest, my sincere and heartfelt gratitude.